Come on then, Finn. Here we go. Come on, here we are. Come on. He's gone. As we step into March, the British countryside begins to stir from its winter slumber, offering the first hints of spring's grand arrival. And for those of us who have a four-legged friend, even if they shoot off when you least expect them to, we can look forward to fewer trudges through the cold, dark evenings and more warm walks through budding floral meadows. Isn't that right, Finn? Look at me when I'm talking to you. Coming up on the show today, a maverick cop with a passion for Bowie, a nun who really does have the patience of a saint, and, cover your ears, Finn, we meet the dogs that really do have star appeal. It's time for Love Your Weekend. Finn? It's hard to beat that spring anticipation where you can finally leave your thick coat at home and feel the sun's warmth on your back. Well, we haven't quite let go of our thick coats or our woolly pulleys just yet, but there's plenty to get you in the mood for spring on today's show. Coming up, he's the actor who experienced life on Mars, so I wonder how life on Manor Farm will compare. More livestock, I imagine. Philip Glenister on the hotly anticipated reboot of everyone's favourite Jersey detective, Bergerac. Bringing a higher order to the barn today, not one but two popular favourites, Sister Julienne and Nurse Joyce, otherwise known as Jenny Agutter and Rennie Bailey, on the lives and loves of the gentlefolk of Nonnatus House. Could the first signs of spring be on the horizon? Garden designer Jamie Butterworth brings some early flowers to the shrubbery. Plus, from 101 Dalmatians to Beethoven, the history of dogs on film is as long and illustrious as Lassie's luscious mane. Boluesu is introducing us to some doggy doppelgangers from the movies. Speaking of which, as the who's who of La La Land get ready for tonight's Academy Awards, Becky Paskin's channeling her inner Audrey Hepburn and travelling back to the golden age of Hollywood with some blockbuster beverages, including a suave French 75, inspired by Casablanca, and a playful Marilyn Monroe Manhattan. Apparently, some like it hot. But first, to quote T.S. Eliot, every moment is a fresh beginning, and that moment begins right here. Joining me, the man who famously told Celia Imrie in Calendar Girls, "Don't touch the buns," Philip Glenister. She made us all well up with that famous line in The Row Where Children, I'm sorry, as the father of daughters, I can't bring myself to say it, Jenny Agutter, and to a lady normally seen saying, "I can see the head," call the midwives, Rennie Bailey. Welcome to you, all known for these roles, which people I think often confuse you with, really. I mean, Jenny, do people assume, have you met folk who think you really are a nun, you know?
Yes. Except that I have got the wimple off.
Yeah.
But I did, I was on a bus one time, there was a woman sitting next to me, and she said, well, I have to say, just as she was getting off, I have to say I really do enjoy Call the Midwife. And I said, thank you very much. She said, but I have a particular interest because I was a nun, at which point I'm riveted and I want to know about her. And I said, well, really? You're not anymore? She said, no, but, you know, I was in Ireland and that was something from our family. It was easier. But it wasn't for me. So she was there for 9 years and I suddenly realised at 12 years I had been a nun longer than her.
Philip, with Life on Mars, people still remember, and they still remember, you know, your character in that. It was very, you know, kind of... Do you still get people saying, can you fire up the Quattro? Or...
Yeah, I remember one time I was walking down my road, just going to the shops or whatever, and this car drove past me and kind of did a three-point turn. Quite a heavy manoeuvre, you know, probably did it in about 5 point because the road was quite narrow, and did all this work, and then sort of came back out and pulled over, and I thought they was going to ask for directions somewhere, and he just wound the window down and went like, "Oi!" And I went, "What?" And he went, "Fire up the Quattro!" And I went, OK. You know, and it's that kind of thing that I just heard this for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it was, you know, I just thought, Well, you know.
But behind the scenes, I mean, you've worked, you very much, Rennie, I mean, you know the behind the scenes of you know, work because you worked as a video journalist.
Yeah.
So you've done bits before you actually got there. But you've also done red carpet stuff.
Done a lot of red carpets, usually film premieres, and, you know, you doing interviews with big stars. I think my favourite, going to name drop, is probably Tom Hanks. One of the sweetest men.
My wife will be so pleased.
No, honestly.
Tom Hanks and George Clooney, she wants to know they're nice.
That's exactly how you'd think Tom Hanks will be. That's
Usually the
how he
bigger the
is.
star, the nicer they are.
Oh, 100%. And
You
what do you
know,
do? You
because
call
they've
them
got nothing
over?
to prove.
yeah, well,
It's like,
you're
come
in the
over.
line
Yeah.
of
Come as they come along.
interviews, and they come along, and I've interviewed him twice actually, and he's every single time just been so personable and friendly. But it's interesting because I was saying before to a friend, I was like, it prepared me a little bit for Call the Midwife, because you've got people like Jenny Agutter and Linda Bassett, Georgie Glenn, like people who I've grown up watching, and I'm used to being around like. I got used to
Really big stars.
Yeah, not being starstruck by people and it being a bit more normal.
In my experience and talking to people on here, there's an enormous sense of respect of those coming up, of the people they're working with, and also pride from the older actors in bringing along that next generation. And it seems to me that pertains most of the time. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the enjoyment of what people bring.
Yeah.
You know, it's fresh and there's different. You know, they've
I
been
also
working
think that
different things.
the thing about our industry is that, you know, when you get to a certain age, you can't play the Juve lead anymore. You know, you've gone beyond it. So you can't compete with somebody who's
Not gonna be
30
jealous.
when you're 60. You know, you're playing your age.
Yeah.
So I think in that respect, there's no point in trying to compete with the younger generation, because you're not going to get the same parts.
Unless
you know?
you've had several facelifts.
Unless you've had a lot of
Yes,
a lot
but
of
then,
Botox.
then Jenny, your face
Exactly.
doesn't move, so it's really
Exactly.
difficult to act.
Yeah.
Botox and that.
Awards ceremony tonight, the Oscars tonight. Any favourite awards moments?
When I went to the Oscars in the States, I was very young and I couldn't face going down the red carpet, so snuck in a back door, which is not the way to do it. And then the show itself, I have to say, that it's fun to watch and all the things that go on, and singing and the dancing and the announcers. But actually being there, it's very, very long and really quite boring, which is why they pay people to come in and sit in the seats. You know, and as soon as an actor gets up and leaves to go to the bar at the back, then they pop someone in there so it remains full all the time.
Well, you've done your share then of the other side of the road. Hopefully we'll see you walking down it in the future, Rennie. But happy memories of the likes of Tom Hanks, at not the Oscars, as you say, but at red carpet ceremonies. Very fun to be at.
It's interesting. It's really stressful. It's very quick, and you know you'll have PRs who are usually being on that side will be like, "Oh, do you want to speak to this person?" And it's someone who you've probably never heard of, or they're not in the film that you're talking about. They're just attending, and sometimes you're just like, "Yeah, sure," just because you need to keep you know a good relationship with them.
Philip, award ceremony story?
Well, one year, a few years back at the BAFTAs, the television BAFTAs, myself and my brother Rob were presenting the best comedy show, and there was a sort of champagne bar there, you know, because I think it was sponsored by a certain champagne company, the BAFTAs. And so they were like, "Do you want a glass of champagne?" We'll have a glass of champagne. And then we sort of did the award with Mrs. Brown's boys. They went off to have their press thing done, and Rob and I were like left there. We were like, "Should we have another glass?" He was like, "Yeah, go on then." So we had another little glass, and then we became like the sort of resident barman backstage. I remember Matt Smith coming back, because presenting the next one, I said, "You're a bit nervous?" He was like, "I'm all right. Do you want a glass?" "Yeah, go on then." You know. So we became barmen for about half an hour. And we went back to our seats, and our wives, Celia and Beth, were both sort of like, "Where have you been?" And we're like, "Just doing a lot of press." You know, yeah.
More from Jenny, Renee and Philip later. Do partake of today's glorious ambrosial arrangement of pastries and cakes. Coming up, dogs have long been making their mark on cinematic history, and indeed here at Manor Farm. Today the two come together. Vet Boluesu is here with a pack of pooches straight from the movies. OK, so they're actually doggy doppelgangers, but close enough. We'll be catching up with our Bolu and our cinematic canines right after this. Dear March, come in. How glad I am. I hoped for you before. Put Down Your Hat, just part of a poem by Emily Dickinson, celebrating the start of an exciting time. And there's plenty to get excited about this morning. Coming up, Poplar comes to Manor Farm, Jenny Agutter and Rennie Bailey on what's in store for Sister Julienne, Nurse Joyce and the residents of Nonnatus House. And bringing those two inseparable bedfellows, glitz and glam, to the Oscars with a tribute to old Hollywood. Becky Paskin whips up some classic cocktails from the silver screen, including a sparkling surprise inspired by Breakfast at Tiffany's and a French 75 Casablanca style. Here's looking at you, kid. That's quite good, wasn't it, really? But now, most sparkling stars in showbiz may be aligning for tonight's 97th Academy Awards, but here at Manor Farm, we're celebrating some of the other A-listers who've stolen the show over the years, the four-legged variety, from Toto's unwavering loyalty in The Wizard of Oz to Pongo and Perdita's spotty brood in 101 Dalmatians. Our furry friends do have a knack of stealing the scene, as we know all too well on this show. Here to talk us through some of the top dogs from cinematic history, please welcome back vet Dr. Bolu Esso and his pack of picture-perfect pooches. Glad I've said that before Becky Paskin came along. Bolu, they are really the stars though, aren't they? We all remember 101 Dalmatians, Beethoven, the whole lot.
Annie as well, yeah. I've got some special breeds for you today as well to look at.
Let's start by heavens above. This is Maria with Gable, and here we've got Sandy from Annie. So what is Gable?
Gable is an otterhound.
I remember, you see them so rarely, otterhounds.
Yeah.
Lovely line to that body and this great, glorious hair.
They're beautiful dogs, and you know they don't get sung about enough. I don't think they get enough praise. We've tried to champion them a lot on the show as well. And
now, obviously, and quite rightly, we stopped hunting otters, but they were for hunting otters. Has that meant the breed has declined a bit in terms of numbers? You don't see a lot about, do you?
Probably talking 250, maximum 300 left.
In the country?
In the country.
Gracious
And
me.
they are British.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody said to you, why should I have an otterhound? What would you say? What's their advantages, their pluses and minuses?
Wonderful family dogs.
Yeah.
Fabulous temperaments. Despite the amount of hair, they don't molt.
They don't shed.
They don't shed.
Well.
The only time that the hair comes out is when you groom them.
Yeah.
Which I would recommend a maximum of twice a month.
Right.
I have a waterproof coat, so when they come home all dirty and muddy, you pop them to bed, and next morning they will come out and all the mud will have fallen off.
Really?
Yeah, they should be sort of mud and
You're
water
selling this
repellent.
incredibly well to house-proud homeowners. How old?
He's 3.5.
Yeah.
You have actually met him before.
Where did I meet him before?
Filming here,
Yeah.
he was 14 weeks old.
I was going to say, because I would have remembered him, so he was tiny
He
wee.
was 14 weeks old. Last time he was on the
back,
show.
Gable.
So I
Welcome
thought it would
back.
be lovely to bring
Well, that's lovely to see.
the small and the large.
Yeah,
version.
well, that's why I didn't recognise him, because he was about as big as his front leg.
He was about as big as his front leg, yes.
Oh, I love that face. It's a great calmness about him.
Maria's said all the top points that I would have hit about an otterhound. Like, lovely breed, I think. I think they just don't get enough recognition, and it's just bringing them more to the forefront, championing how great they are as well. But lovely.
Oh, how lovely to see you again. It's lovely to see you again, Gable. You won't remember me in the same way that I don't remember you, because you're a completely different size and shape. Bless you, Maria. Thank you very much.
Good boy.
Well, what a treat. It's lovely when they come back, isn't it, really? OK, for the next dog, I need to do this. We're no longer in Kansas, Toto. I'm not doing Judy Garland's voice. Toto is Federer. I wonder who Federer might be named after. Now I've got his face covered in straw. There we are, with Jan. Jan, you're very welcome.
I learned something interesting about Federer. His name actually comes from his kennel club name is Game Set Match.
Game, set and match.
Oh, really? So that's why he's called Federer.
Fetz,
They
Fetz.
come up with some names of kennel
So we
club.
called him Federer.
How old, Jan?
He's 2.5 now.
Yeah. Lovely. Our first dog when I was little was a Corgi Cairn and Border Terrier cross, which didn't look totally distinct from Federer here, but a lovely breed in terms of size. Good to get on with?
Yes. Very energetic, but...
Lot of
really
walking.
good. A lot of walking.
Yeah.
As you'd expect of a terrier. So anything terrier, I just think energy, lots of energy. But you know, they're used to small prey, you know, rats.
Oh, yeah.
Rats, mice, rabbits, anything pest, vermin, that's what they were originally bred for. And then you've got, you know, the different lines. He's got such a beautiful head on him, but you can see it like, you know,
Beautiful
similar to the Westie and the Scottie that were in that same area.
I think you'll have to have that biscuit you've got there, Jan. There we are.
But he's lovely colouring.
It's a lovely colour. Now, what is this colour? Because it's relatively unusual.
He's a silver brindle at the
Silver
moment.
brindle,
but
gorgeous.
he will go really dark.
Yeah.
You know, like the Toto in the film.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she was really. She actually was. That was a female in Toto.
Yeah.
And her name was Terry.
Right.
Originally-
Toto was really Terry.
Yeah, really, she was Terry. But
Totally Terry.
yeah, and her very first film was with Shirley Temple.
Really?
Bright Eyes.
A
Yeah,
real
in
star then.
1934.
Lovely. Well, I've got a great soft spot for Ken.
Yeah,
Lovely
they
to
are,
see you.
lovely.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank
Okay,
you. Well
thanks.
done. Not
Federer.
Toto. Well done, Federer. Yeah.
It's good timing for this as well, considering that there's a reboot of Wizard of Oz with Wicked coming out. So it's a nice one. Yeah, great timing.
Lovely dog. Well, we've now got not Pongo and not Perdita, but we have Murphy, who's here with Jamie. And of course, everybody remembers. I remember the first iteration of 101 Dalmatians with Cruella de Vil. But look at this. I have a feeling we're going to get another leg. No, we didn't. Go a little bit further back over there. Then we have a proper look at you.
Hello, look, he's going to do
Now,
the
this is
Dalmatian smile as well.
Murphy. Now, this is interesting. Some of them have black spots, some have lighter
Exactly.
spots. Here we've got really dark brown spots.
Exactly, so we say liver, yeah. So
Right.
he's got liver, so
Yeah.
he's white and liver, or liver and white. I was trying to remember if in the original movie, if there was one that were liver and white, but I think they were all black and white out of the whole 101.
Yeah,
I think all of them
yeah.
were black and white.
Now, they have a reputation, Jamie, for being a little bit highly strung.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah.
As you'll probably see,
Now, that sometimes puts people off having them as family dogs.
They're hard work.
They're hard work.
Yeah.
In terms of exercise, discipline,
lot of
and everything.
exercise.
But such a handsome Bolu, a handsome
he's a lovely fella.
physique.
Yeah, very handsome dog. Look, he's got that frame, is the frame that we see in a lot of pointers, because they are ancestors for a lot of like the pointers and the hunting dogs. So you will see that frame amongst that same kind of lineage. Also, obviously, the nature of them, they were like carriage dogs, along with firemen as well. So firefighters, they'd run alongside the carriages and they'd be support. So they have this energy in them to just keep going and keep going. And I think that's what I see in Dalmatians, very like, I wouldn't say, highly strung, very highly strung, but they've got a lot of energy, so they need a lot of attention when it comes to walking and exercising that energy and finding ways in which to drain them of that energy so they don't misbehave.
So, Jamie, is he the only one, or do you have more?
No, but he is my third.
Right, so you're a Dalmatian man there. You clearly,
It's my thing, yeah.
You're a glutton for punishment by the sound of it. Where it's but such a beautiful dog.
brown spots as well.
But
He's
so
got a
as
soft
long
spot.
as you're prepared to give them the exercise,
Yeah.
be ready for them to have an abundance of energy.
Yeah, they do have a lot of energy. Apparently, over a distance, they're the fastest dog.
Oh, this is a new fact to me.
I've been
Cheetahs
told.
of the dog world.
And they have a very high sort of muscle ratio.
Yes,
Yeah.
big
I think
time.
to body weight, which means they have to burn it off.
Lovely to meet you both, Jamie. Thank you very much.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming. Lovely to see you.
He does
There
that
you
lovely
got to go that
Dalmatian
way
smile.
now.
Come on, Smav, this way.
You said, yeah, good mover.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Now you will recognise Sergio, Ernie and Honey as the breed that was beloved of our late Queen and, of course, featured in the film The Queen. And here they are with Maria. Corgis. Now, are we talking Welsh Corgis or Pembroke Corgis or what?
Welsh Pembroke Corgis.
Oh, all
There
three.
you go. Welsh
Because there are
Pembroke
different
Corgis.
kinds, Maria. aren't
Cardigan
there?
is the other one.
Cardigan corgis
right.
as well.
But it always reminds me whenever I see corgis, they're really quite near the ground.
Yes, very.
The Queen's had a reputation for being a bit snappy.
She had many corgis, and I think they're all different lines because obviously there was 30 over the time of her reign. I think it's part of the herding tendencies that they have, but in general, a lot of the time, I feel like corgis are really, really
Their
lovely.
natural instinct is to herd.
Yeah.
But I think now most people are switched on from when they have them as puppies. You just train them not to nip people's ankles.
Yeah.
And these wouldn't nip anybody. You know, we have 8.
and we don't have any trouble with any of them.
8. And look at that face. It's fox-like,
Very
isn't it, in a
fox-like,
way?
yeah, exactly.
The ears prick up. It's such a distinctive face.
I think they're just beautiful dogs as well. I think one of my favourite assets is the corgi bum. When they're walking away, it looks like a lovely peach. It is really
Nice.
lovely.
I've never heard the expression peachy bum on Love Your Weekend before. I apologise for that. And other terms are available. I remember the late Queen saying somebody accidentally trod on one of the corgi's feet in the house, because you don't see it. And she said, it's all right, it serves him right for being the same colour as the carpet. But because they're trained to be herding dogs, does that mean indoors they're not as calm as they should be, or are they calm when they're at home?
They're calm. They do. If they hear a noise, they're very sharp, and I just adore them. They're just wonderful dogs to live with.
Yeah, it's been a delight to meet
Thank
you
you.
all. Thank you, owners, so much for coming, and thank you,
Thank you so
Bolly.
much.
Thank you so much.
Fab.
Come on, off you go.
I love this programme. Still ahead is either the Poirot of the plant world or the Columbo of the countryside. I'll let you decide. Tristan Gooley on reading the signs and clues in nature. And you'd be surprised how much we can learn from them. Also coming up, she's the friendly face with a reassuring smile. And she's also the friendly face with a reassuring smile. Yes, if these two are around, you know you're in safe hands. Call the Midwives Jenny Agutter and Rennie Bailey take a nostalgic look back at the iconic drama that continues to capture all our hearts. I'll see you with the sister and the midwife for some angelic chat right after this. Welcome back to Love Your Weekend. Coming up, he's played saints and sinners, criminals and clergy, not to mention one of the most outrageous coppers ever to grace our screens, DCI Gene Hunt. Philip Glenister on leading the way in TV hardmen, this time in the new Bergerac reboot. And to think he wanted to be a milkman growing up. Funny how life turns out, isn't it? And he's an expert at interpreting nature's signs and cues. No, not Philip Glenister, but our natural navigator, Tristan Gooley. He unravels the secrets to reading water, even when there's a lot of it about. And tonight, as the great and the good of Hollywood vie to take home a golden statue, so lapsing into my 1950s there, with something almost as good as an Oscar, we got a Becky Paskin, who's presenting her top tipples, inspired by classics of the silver screen. More liquid lunch than breakfast at Tiffany's. But first, a Sunday evening staple and a Titchmarsh favourite, the award-winning series which follows the lives and loves of a group of midwives and nuns at Nonnatus House, dealing with a range of issues, but always ending on hope.
For Sister Julienne of the Order of St. Raymond Nonnatus.
We are born knowing nothing and no one but our mother. And never again will the world feel so complete.
Joining me now, Sister Julienne, Jenny Agutter, and Nurse Joyce, Rennie Bailey. Lovely to have you both here. It's become... We're talking about hope there. And I guess, Jenny, from your point of view, having been here since the very beginning, there must have been a degree of, how will this go down, midwifery on a Sunday evening? But it has become such a staple because it's so positive, don't you think?
I think very much that, yes. At the beginning it was like, nuns and midwives, yeah, great, lovely series, beautifully written, will it go anywhere? No. But it does, and what I didn't calculate was that Heidi Thomas just writes these wonderful stories which really tell about the human condition, and it is about a community, and it is about hope, and it's about babies being born. Of course, babies being born always bring with them that hope for a future, which is why it's so emotional.
I think you, more than anyone else in Britain, make me cry whenever a baby's born. I'm afraid I'm one of those guys who just wells up. I think once you're a dad and you see it, it brings it all back all over again. And then ready for you to join this august cast.
Yeah, honestly, it's insane. It was weird joining something that's so well established and everybody knows, like you say, it's a Sunday staple. And coming into it, I think.
Were we horrible?
It was really hard. No, it's a lovely family and a lovely team of people. And I think coming into it, you kind of are not thinking about call the midwife. You're just coming in, doing your job. And it's only when it comes out and you have the reaction from people that you're like, oh gosh, I hope hope you're doing the characters justice and, you know, fitting into the world.
I mean, also what works in a way, so you come in with a script that's introducing you.
Yeah.
So you have that feeling anyway that you're kind of being introduced as the character and introduced to the cast and getting used to everybody. So everybody's feeling everybody out as to how they work and what they do and all the rest. But we, you know, I think we're very welcoming.
You also don't fight shy of controversial issues. I mean, buried deep in this lovely, ostensibly cosy Sunday evening watch are things like spina bifida, and at the moment, particularly with you, Renee, which is beautifully played.
Bernie Midgley is a character. She makes people laugh. She made instant friends out of the other midwives. And she did not treat me in the same way. I saw something similar in her attitude towards certain patients. I believe she objected to me because of the color of my skin.
Is that something you've experienced before?
I could laugh that you've even asked me that. Or I could cry.
Close to home.
Yeah. No, for sure. I feel like when you're doing storylines that, I guess, reflect your real world as well, it's a really interesting thing, and then you feel like you want to do it justice and really tell that story honestly and authentically. And I think working with Jenny on it, I felt really safe to kind of have that time. And
we talked about the fact that Sister Julian doesn't seem to recognise, you know, she's saying, really? Is that, you know, because it's not been her world.
Not in her world, not in her
And she has this
makeup.
amazing nurse, and why this should have happened. And you've got this very affable character who's got this deep-seated hatred and is entirely racist.
You clearly get on as a group. I mean, who were the mischief makers in your little coterie?
Well, Steve McGann is
100%.
Sort of a mischief maker, and as much as he is great fun to have on set and doesn't stop. I mean, he'll song and dance because he's brought up with a musical family, tell jokes, tell stories, get into science stories, but just, yes.
He's a great storyteller.
fun.
He's always
Great
got a great
storyteller.
story about something. But also I feel like Cliff and Danny
Cliff is pretty
are
naughty.
a naughty double act. They very much are always
yeah.
up to something or doing something cheeky on set.
Yeah,
Very
no, they
much
do.
as well.
They have a little bit of teamwork going
Yeah.
on, play games.
I hope you can keep running for a long time, you know, because it's, you know, having got to 1970, the thing particularly with Jenny and I having lived through that, you think, well, it was only yesterday, you know, and then you realise you're now part of history.
I know,
really?
I know. It's interesting, isn't it? It doesn't feel like that, but it is.
Is it true that you've never seen The Railway Children?
It is. I can neither confirm nor deny. I haven't ever seen it. No, I haven't. But I know so many people that have. And as soon as I joined, as soon as I joined the show, they were like, "Oh my God, you're going to be working with Jenny Agutter from The Railway Children," and I was like, "Yeah."
Now, I've had a bit of a battle on this, because I think Jenny knows this anyway, is that whenever this comes on at home, I have two daughters, right? I have to leave the room. I really have to leave the room. They want me to play this clip. Now, I'm going to have to hide behind a cushion now when I show you what you're missing, because the most famous scene from The Railway Children, which Jenny will have seen countless times, I'm sorry, is a dad's been taken away totally unjustly, well, like your case, totally unjustly taken away. They don't know whether they're going to see him again. And it's up in Yorkshire, and the steam train comes in, and she's told to go to the platform. She goes to the platform, wondering why she's been told to go and meet this train. And this is what happens next. Excuse me.
Daddy, my daddy!
It's beautifully filmed, isn't it, though? I love the fact that it becomes silent, and then you have Johnny Douglas underscore, and just those pings and then this clearing. I mean, it's beautifully done. It's just on the edge of being sentimental.
Oh, no, it's fine.
But it tells the story that Nesbit wanted. She desperately, her father died when she was a child, and she wanted father to come home. So, one feels
It's my part of Yorkshire as well, you see, so there's everything in there, you know, from growing up. And I think I've told Jenny this before. My dad was a part-time fireman, and one of the other firemen, they made the rain when it was pouring down. They had to get the fire engines out and make the rain for it. So I've got a sort of indirect link connection to it. And then you played the mum in the sort of second version.
I played Mum in 2000, and then I played Grandma a couple of years ago.
Oh, Lord, they're trying to give you the hint, Jenny, aren't they, really? You started off, though, not, Rennie, as an actor, but as a a video journalist.
Yeah, I started off working for the Press Association, and that was a crazy time. I studied it in uni, I studied journalism, and then I was in the world for a good 5 years, filming all sorts of like news, sports, entertainment. You know, you do stuff with the Royals, or whether it's red carpets or politics, running into Number 10 as they do their, you know, they have someone visiting from another country and they did a visit, and then the start of the bilateral meeting, and going from that.
How difficult was the transition from that to, you know, legit, as it were?
Do you know what? It was something, like, acting was something I'd always loved, and I did it in school. And
I've always loved it, but I'm not in Call the Midwife. No, but the transition, go on.
It was something I always loved, and it wasn't until I went to uni that I was like, I don't think this is a real career. I could never really be an actor. So I just completely did something else, and it was while I was in uni working in a shop or something that I was like, I don't want to have any regrets when I get older. So when I graduated, I started auditioning for like part-time drama schools and doing classes while working full-time as a journalist. And so I'd work like 7 till 5 and then have a class in the evening, and just kind of did that year on year. And then, you know, then suddenly it happens, you get an agent and you start in theatre. I did a lot of young companies, and then, I found my way through. And now I'm sat next to Jenny Agutter from the Railway Children.
Well, you really ought to see that aside from that, one of the things that Jenny did, which was quite remarkable, was The Eagle Has Landed. And we're talking feature films as well with you. Yeah. And Jenny Agutter riding a horse.
Get out of here before I let my mad passion run away with me. Go on, get.
They told me all Irishmen were crazy. Now I believe them. I'll be at Mass on Sunday, will you?
Do I look like I will?
Yes, I think you do.
Look at her go! I mean, goodness me. Donald Sutherland, a beach of sand dunes, leaping onto a horse and riding bareback. I mean, this is the way to go, right? Happy memories of working with Donald Sutherland?
Yeah, no, he was a lovely, slightly unpredictable person, not unlike the character he played in a way. But it was constantly changing the script and coming up with ideas and things. But I think one of the things I remember so well is just actually the horse riding in that, because although I had learnt to ride, I didn't really ride all that well. And I'd moved to LA at that point, and I was sent to learn some riding from an old gentleman who taught Elizabeth Taylor to ride for National Velvet.
Oh, my goodness.
And we used to go to Malibu Beach, I mean, the proper, the Malibu Canyon Beach. It was a big, long beach of sand, and just ride up and down the beach bareback, and he would just turn around on his horse bareback and talk to me and tell me stories and things. It was magical. I had such a good time. I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about the world one's in, is the opportunities one has to do, kind of extraordinary things.
And when you looked at it, Rennie, I mean, and the world is your oyster from where you're sitting now, are there ambitions, or are you just enjoying the journey and seeing what comes?
Yeah, I mean, you always have those goals where you're like, oh, I'd love to do this or that. But right now, I'm enjoying the journey, and I would love to just do more, more. I would love to do film, or I've done I've done a fair bit of TV, but not film or anything like that. So other than short films, so like that would be something that would be really cool, So, but enjoying the journey, and whatever comes and whatever happens is.
Jenny will balk at this. Advice from what you've learned. in your years?
The trouble is there's almost too much time, and because the technology changes, the way one works, the sort of stories, the sort of audience, what people are looking for, I couldn't advise at all. I'm actually picking up, advice from the people I'm working with. So where does one go from here?
Because it's so different.
How does it work? It is so different. It is so different. I mean, one can film much faster. I mean, I think of filming Logan's Run right before Star Wars was done. That was a big change, and then doing the Marvel thing, the way they do sci-fi is completely different. But also the way people... there was one scene I saw on screen when I did the birth. In reality, we could hardly see one another. On film, it looked as clear as day. I mean, it was interesting.
So the days of arc lights are long gone.
Days of arc lights are gone. The fact is, the camera can pick up details in very, very low light, where you're saying, but I don't see the actor opposite me. How can you see them? But, it is different. But also, styles where people come from. I mean, our group of people have all come from very different trainings and backgrounds, which is lovely. But everybody brings something different, and it's good to learn from all of that.
There we are. Every day's a school day,
Right.
really. Lovely to have you both with us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so
Join
much.
us later. Centuries ago, artists like Gainsborough, Constable and Turner, not Mr. Turner from Call the Midwife, but the other one, the drama, beauty and scale of the British landscape, they captured it in oil and watercolour. Today, the subjects remain as beautiful as they were 300 years ago, but rather like the different film techniques, the medium is a lot more high-tech, thanks to cameras and smartphones. It's time to see some of those now in your very own Walk on the Wild Side. Oh gosh, as March rolls in and with it the promise of warmer days ahead, it's the perfect time to celebrate your creative spirit, which you do so well. Please keep them coming, we do enjoy them. Coming up, from warning clouds to cooling trees to the humble puddle, Tristan Gooley, the natural navigator, on how Mother Nature can double up as your very own GPS system. Plus, award-winning designer Jamie Butterworth's here with some early seasonal floral showstoppers. Try saying that after a Best of British. I'll see you with Jamie and his impressive showstoppers right after this. Welcome back to Love Your Weekend. Still ahead, it's time to don your glad rags, grab a glass and get ready for a taste of old Hollywood. Becky Paskin and the classic cocktails inspired by the silver screen, including a classic Gibson from All About Eve and a Marilyn Monroe Manhattan from Some Like It Hot. And from Calendar Girls to the politically incorrect cop Gene Hunt to the Reverend Anderson in Outcast. He's had some roles. Philip Glenister is now butting heads with Bergerac in the brand new reboot. But first, it's time for your Voice of Nature. Here's Joanna Page and Mrs. Jenny Wren by Rodney Bennett.
Mrs. Jenny Wren. I have never heard such a very big voice for a very tiny bird. You sit on a post and you sing and you sing. You're a very bold bird for such a tiny little thing, Jenny Wren. If I had a voice for my size as big as yours, I should never dare sing without shutting all the doors. I'd sing very softly for fear they should hear, or they'd hurry away and put a finger in each ear. Jenny Wren.
Thank you, Joanna, for Mrs. Jenny Wren. It's powerful, the Jenny Wren. Its complex song is lighting up even the dullest and dreariest of days, and the trick is to try and spot it as it flits about. This time of year marks a period of transition as we slowly meander our way out of the depths of winter. And on a crisp March day, we're sometimes lucky enough to have a sneak preview of spring. And as the British countryside begins its quiet transformation, frosty mornings giving way to the first brave flowers, we're celebrating those early bloomers. Here to show us how to coax your garden into a springtime symphony of colour, it's our very own shrub sage, Jamie Butterworth. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you, Alan.
With a timely reminder of the fact that it isn't all dead and silent and asleep at this time of year. Some of it's wide awake.
I adore this time of year. It feels like we've just made it through and the first signs of spring are just starting to emerge and appear. I think we all need a bit of bright colour to revitalise. Spring's right on the edge now.
And a bit of scent too, if you've got witch hazels like
Absolutely.
these.
From where I'm stood, this smells absolutely incredible. And Hamamelis witch hazels are just one of the, they're like the beacon that we're so close to winter being over. And
They mark the turning point, don't they, really?
They really do.
Yeah.
They really, and they do it so powerfully. Some of the first plants can actually be a little bit measly, but these are so bright, so colourful. It's like, yeah, let's start the year off with a huge bang.
The brightest of all the three you've brought here is this one, lovely pale yellow, which I prefer because you can see it across the garden. Which one's this?
You can. That's Arnold Promise, which is probably one of the more sort of traditional coloured Hamamelis as well. But yes, it's quite recognisable.
Yeah, lovely. And the red one?
This is Gelina, which is a bit more sort of compact and upright. The flowers aren't quite as big, but honestly just as beautiful as well.
And then you've got, now that's spectacular, that's pure orange.
This is my favourite. This is, I mean, the name gives it away, it's orange peel, but they literally look like bits of orange peel.
Yeah.
It smells incredible. And one of the amazing things about Hamamelis is they're the first into flower, but because they're shrubs, they need to come into flower before the big trees sort of put their canopies on. So
shade them out.
Absolutely. So this is their sort of one opportunity, and boy, do they make the most of it.
Now, normally they flower on bare stems, but I've noticed this year, I was at Wisley the other day, a lot of them are retaining their leaves. They've not fallen off. Now, this is a shame because the leaves get in the way of looking at these lovely flowers. The abscission layer, which forms at the bottom of the leaf in autumn and the deciduous trees lose their leaves, normally leave these stems naked. Do we know why they've kept their leaves this year?
Do you know what we were discussing it on the nursery just the other day, because it's highly unusual and
I've never seen it happen before.
I've never seen it happen before, and we're living in a changing climate. I don't know if it's anything to do with that. Obviously, these are plant species that we've grown for many, many years, but it's happening with other Carpinus as well. Obviously, they hold their leaves for a long time, but they're completely still covered in leaves.
So witch hazels are great. Generally speaking, they're always recommended for acid soil, acid to neutral. You can get away with them on chalk, can't you, if you loads of organic matter in?
You can do. We're very lucky where I live, and actually we've got fairly average pH, which is great. But if you're on really chalky soil, it's probably worth sticking them in a pot just to be safe, and they'll be very happy in a pot.
Now, this is an acquired taste. You love this, don't you?
I adore Edgeworthia, and I think it's the first time we've properly disagreed on one of the plants.
Well, I've always found it's such a... Oh, is that it? It's called Edgeworthia Chrysantha?
Chrysantha, yeah.
And here you can see the flower. I mean, it is pretty when you look at it, but it's a heck of a lot of shrub for not much flower. This is just me. It's a total personal thing.
Every plant is personal, and that's what makes all of our gardens so amazing. It's personal to each and every one of us.
How old is this specimen going to be?
This would be about 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah.
So it's a fair old bit of growth, isn't it?
It's chunky. And it's one of the first plants that I ever learnt when I studied at Wisley, and the way they teach you to remember it is it's that flexible, you can tie it into a knot. And so if you ever go to Wisley or other gardens, you will quite often see knots tied into the shrubs where the students have been round tying knots into it. And when you do your twig ident in winter and you've got nothing else to go off, you're constantly tying knots.
If they've knotted it, it's Edgeworthia.
Exactly, that's it.
Because we had to identify, it's the same at Kew, you've got to identify dormant twigs with no clues. Once the flowers are on Edgeworthia, you know what it is. But to be given bare twigs, it's lime because it does that, and it's beech because it's got narrow. Getting your head round it, so I didn't know
There you go. Well, hopefully neither of us have to do a plant ident anytime soon, because I don't miss it.
Been there, done that, every Friday.
They smell great though as well, and I think obviously the Hamamelis is a lot more showy.
Oh, yes.
But you get a really subtle scent off it. It's the most beautiful to yellow, and it's only just starting to open. So I think credit where credit's due. This is the first, and then all of these will unravel and come out, and then all of a sudden it's smothered. And
you've got one of my favourites behind you, the Persian ironwood.
Yes.
Parotia persica.
Parotia
Well, this is related to witch hazel, isn't it?
It is. It's the same family, and this is a cultivar of the Persian ironwood. This is Vanessa, which is a bit more upright.
Yeah, because as I know it, and I grow it not too many miles from here, it's much more spreading.
Yeah.
This is very upright.
Parotias are sort of famed for being quite horizontal almost. And nobody ever talks about these gorgeous flowers. Everybody buys it for its peeling bark.
By August, often, it started to show colour. But it is pretty. I mean, look at this now. It's full of flower, this one. So we've got colour from Parotia, from Edgeworthia. All right, then. You smell lovely. And from the witch hazels. But things here, very common stuff, Viburnum tinus, that you're pruning to make a bit more interesting, to be honest.
Well, Viburnums get a really hard time, I think. And actually, they're probably one of the most planted shrubs. Everywhere I drive in the country, there's a viburnum in the front garden. And it can be a little bit dull, and it can sometimes look a bit shaggy. It's amazing early spring flower as well.
Yeah, because you've got the pink buds.
Exactly.
And then the white flowers, when those buds open, they become white. Now, you can't say that's not pretty. I think this is a classic case of familiarity breeding contempt. You do see them looking very grey at the edges of car parks.
You do. And actually, I'm a big fan of, using plants that do well, and actually if it's everywhere, there's probably a reason it's everywhere, because it grows really well and it looks good. Exactly. But also then, with maybe a little bit of creative pruning or a little bit of thinking outside the box, this one here has been legged up and pruned, and it's the same plant, just with some branches missing below.
Yeah.
It elevates it. You could underplant this then and do something slightly different with it. So, yes, it's a fantastic shrub for early spring, late winter, sort of brighten up those gloomy mornings. With a little bit of pruning, we can make something quite interesting. And this is one that we'd prepared earlier on the nursery, and I was going to give it a go with this Hamamelis here as well.
So that's Hamamelis, these tiny flowers.
So this is a species Hamamelis, so it's Virginiana, so the flowers are really quite insignificant. Again, it's sort of that conventional shaped shrubs that most gardens across the country have a shrub. So yes, this is a Hamamelis, but this could be anything. And actually with a little bit of creative pruning, and we're not talking about pruning to manage the shape or anything like that at the moment. What we're talking about is trying to get a bit of elevation here.
So go on, what would you do?
So I'd start to take off some of these lower branches here, and you see these wispy small ones. If we take these off right to the base, we can start to clear the bottom of this and start to create quite an open,
a more open framework. So
correct.
Then, so you'll be keeping these big ones.
That's right. So we're going to obviously this is quite a young shrub. This is a great size to start pruning, because actually it's not too big. We're not in there with the loppers and trying to take things out, but also there's enough there to be able to see what we're doing. These central ones can come out.
So you're opening it up. Is that one going to come out? That one there?
I think that one, because that's sort of going that way, isn't it? What do you think? This one? Do you think that one?
I'd have that one off. Yeah. She's pruning by committee. But you can see what we're getting at now.
And all of a sudden,
there's no chopping back here, Jamie. She's thinning it out.
Exactly. I mean, it's one of the things that I absolutely cannot stand. Everybody's got pet hates, but going.
My dad, bless him, we had a weeping willow and used to give it a basin cut. So it would be coming down beautifully, and Dad would go right across the bottom.
It's subjective. I mean, everybody does things their own way. You hate Edgeworthia, I love it. I mean, gardens are subjective, but also I think we can, with a little bit of none of this is complicated by any stretch, but also starts to really make something nice out of this shape.
You know, you've thinned this out, but you now see it for the statuesque shrub that it can be.
It's almost then where does it stop being a shrub and a small multi-stem tree and actually bringing a bit of architecture?
Well, I think that's it. I think you've done it. I love getting Jamie on. You see, when you get fellow gardeners on, you just natter and hope the audience doesn't mind you wittering on to one another. Jamie, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Been a winter colour for your gardener. Now then, these days, technology puts the world at our fingertips, doesn't it? But for millennia, our ancestors looked to rivers, lakes, and even the smallest puddles to help guide them. Water holds a wealth of hidden clues, ripples, reflections, and currents, all whispering secrets to those who know how to listen and interpret what they say. And when it comes to reading water, there's no better expert than natural navigator Tristan Gooley.
We all know water is beautiful. Within that beauty, there are clues and signs, and our ancestors knew how to read them. And I've spent the last 25 years studying and collecting these signs. I've always loved navigation, the art of shaping journeys. And when I was younger, I used to put together these really big expeditions, crossing oceans and thousands of miles and deserts and stuff. But what I found was that wasn't quite as interesting as shorter journeys, just finding my way using clues and signs in nature. We evolved to understand our landscapes. That's how our ancestors survived. And we can enjoy the same skills even if it's not about survival. It's an adventure for the mind. Our ancestors learned how to find their way across oceans just by looking at patterns in the sea. We can see these very same things in our local pond or lake. There's a breeze which is sending ripples across the lake. And when these ripples hit the small island, they rebound, creating a new pattern. And then on the far side of the island, where the breeze can't reach, we have a wind shadow. It goes darker and much, much calmer. Whenever we look at a body of water, we are going to see hundreds of colours. But with a few simple rules, we can make a map. The colour always changes as the water gets shallower. It normally gets a lot lighter in colour. The waves are bending towards us because they slow down near land because it's shallower. For thousands of years, that's helped human beings not run aground. These are the patterns that saved the lives of our ancestors. It was life or death to them, but for us, it just brings a short walk into life. We all find ourselves staring at screens more than we want to every single day. We don't have to throw them away. What I'd encourage you to do, and what I really enjoy doing, is seeing if nature will give me the answer before the screen does. The colours I'm seeing in the path are telling me a lot about the water next to the path. I'm picking up lots of white in the path because there's chalk in the ground here. Chalk is one of nature's best filters, and that's why I'm seeing such fantastically pure water with gorgeous colours. I've just noticed a nice bend in the river, and that's a sign. All streams and rivers bend and curve. They will never run straight for more than 10 times their own width. If we see a straight stream or a straight river, it's a sign of human engineering. And in navigation, it means we're getting close to a town or a village. Everywhere we look, there are clues and signs. It's not just the water. Can you see the birds over there? They're perching in the tree and they are sensitive to the wind. So birds tell us which way the wind is blowing. They're facing into it. The way they take off, the way they land, and the way they perch, all the same direction. That's where the wind is coming from. If you're indoors and you look out of a window and you see the birds facing one way, they're whispering to you. They're telling you where the wind is coming from, even though you can't feel it. We're constantly being told we should reconnect with nature, but what does that actually mean? For lots of people, it helps to have something to look for, and a clue is the best of all things. So when we know that there's a clue in the water, we stop, we look, we find it, we solve the puzzle, and then we really feel that connection.
Thanks, Tristan. And if you want to know more, you can find out how to read water in Tristan's book. It's fascinating. Coming up, award-winning saddler Gudrun Thewson is here to demonstrate the artistry involved in the making of bridles, saddles and straps. I'll be saddling up with Gudrun and today's model horse, Ty, right after this. Welcome back to Manor Farm. Coming up, we say lights, camera, cocktails. Tonight is Oscars night. Becky Paskin ready for a close-up as she brings us cocktails inspired by Hollywood's golden age ahead of tonight's 97th Annual Academy Awards. And remember this? Who can forget Bergerac? Philip Glenister on the return of the 80s Sunday night drama, which in its day pulled in 15 million viewers. Much like us, really. Now, humans have ridden horses for thousands of years, but it wasn't until about 800 years ago that we realised it might be a little more comfortable to do so with a seat. And the saddle was born. The construction and fitting of saddles has long been a highly skilled vocation. And although technology has come on quite a way since then, to this day, the artistry and craftsmanship involved in saddlery remains. Here to tell us more is the winner of the Saddlers Company Trophy for Excellence of Work, Gudrun Thewson. Welcome, Gudrun. What made you want to be a saddler?
Because I've ridden most of my life and I thought, how can I work with horses that involves both the welfare of the horse and the rider, and to make them more comfortable.
Right, so you're sitting there in a saddle thinking, I could do better than this. This is very uncomfortable. Yeah. Now, over here, congratulations on your prize, which is an astonishing thing to win. We've got even more of them over here, and bridles and you know, all this work here. So this is the kind of stitching is a big part of your life then, presumably, enormous part of your life.
Both for making and for repairing.
Yeah. Is that so how long could a saddle last if it's regularly repaired?
I've seen saddles that are probably about 30 years old, and if you keep them maintained, then But saddles are all well and good, but as long as it fits the horse. Yeah. So some saddles that were made 30 years ago, they're probably not moved on with the time of the modern horse that we see now.
So the modern horse is a different shape?
It's a bit different shape. You've got a bit more of bred more in for the different disciplines. Mm-hmm. Whereas 30 years ago, it would just be whatever its talent was, maybe. Right. Then now it's very, very specific.
Yeah. And that has affected the way saddles. You work today, the way the saddler works. All these wonderful bits and bobs of tools. It's always lovely seeing tools which have been really well used. Yeah. So do you make saddles as well as repair them?
I can. Yeah. Mostly now, where I'm both a saddler and a saddle fitter, we would buy them in already made from a manufacturing. And adjust them. And then you can adjust them for each individual horse and rider.
Gosh, it is really bespoke saddlery. Yeah. Now you've got the stuffing over here, which is what? It's sheep's wool.
So it is sheep's wool. So you've got grey flocking and white. So this is from Jacob sheep. Yeah. And that's from white. It's just down to preference from different manufacturers and saddle fitters what you prefer working with. But yeah, it's just long, nice strands. So when we reflock a saddle, you would get it apart like this. Yeah. And then use your tools to.
Now let's have a look at this, because we've got. This is. You're going to take this one apart. Yeah. Go on then. Let's let you get going. Isn't it? I mean, who knew? You know that all this was involved in. I mean, you obviously know somebody makes a saddle, but the complexity of it all. Yeah. And how it all comes apart, and how many layers, Gudrun. I think that's the surprise, really.
Of layers of
because you sort of think a saddle is it's a lump of leather that's obviously sculpted to the back of a horse.
So I think mainly, if you were to make a saddle from start to finish, it would probably take you a few weeks. Yeah. But you start with the tree, and you can probably spend a good few days on doing that just on its own. And then it would be about making the top, what we call the top of the saddle, which is the seat and the flaps, which you'll see in a minute.
And
so that's the what we call the panel. Yeah. The bottom of the saddle coming off, and that's the top.
And this is where the stuffing is.
Yes. You can probably see his age of the saddle.
Yeah, so you can see the wear.
This saddle needs a good TLC. Yeah. So it needs what we call a full reflock. So you take all of the stuffing out, and then you restuff it, because as much as you might have it maintained by a saddle fitter, at some point
it's going to need a complete overhaul.
And then the girth straps, you use these every day.
Yeah.
So they take a lot of wear. So that's a new one.
Look at the difference between that one and that one. Yeah. Now we've got leather here. We can see how thick it is. We've also got a saddle. We've also got Ty with Nikki that we're going to put a saddle on. So Ty, welcome back. There's your friend over here, but you're much better behaved than he is. So when it comes to putting it on,
so
look at that. Such a glorious bit of work. Are you admiring Nikki?
I am. I'm looking at that. Yes, with envy.
With envy, yeah. Hello.
Right. So putting the saddle on. You check for a few different points.
Yeah.
So you check what's really, really important. It's obviously the welfare of the horse. So that's the width of the saddle, and we want that to follow the line just behind his scapula, which is his shoulder.
So you need to know about anatomy as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then after that, you obviously want to look at the balance, because even though the width might be right, it could be tipping back or it could be tipping forward. That all depends on the shape of the tree and the panels. So lots going into it.
So it's like going to Savile Row and having a suit made, I imagine. I haven't got a Savile Row suit. But what I'm just going to grab is this. So that's it's all written down then on here, which you've got saddle details, all this height of rider, horse details, height, colour, experience. So this is your pattern of what you're going to make.
So that is what we would take every time we see the horse, which is between 3 to 6 months, just depending on what the horse needs, age, what it's doing, and you take full measurements. So you take 2 near its scapula, then you take 1 over his last rib, and then you take 1 of the line of his back. Really.
It must be hugely satisfying for you when you've done the job, and you know Nikki's come and said, "My saddle really needs some sorting out." You know, you've done the job. You can see the horse and rider go off. The horse is comfortable. The rider's comfortable. Job well done. Congratulations to you. Congratulations on the award. And thank you so much for coming and explaining to us just what goes into a saddle. That's fascinating. Thanks, Gudrun, very much. And thanks, Nikki, and thank you, Ty. Nice to see you again. This is the Manor Farm resident horse, I think, aren't you? You've done very well. Well done, you. Still ahead, Becky Paskin brings us the best of the silver screen with her cinematic-inspired cocktails, from a Casablanca-inspired French 75 to a twist on the Shirley Temple. And he played renegade 70s copper D.I. Gene Hunt in Life on Mars. Fire up the Quattro. Philip Glenister's here, this time taking on another iconic cop show, Bergerac. I'll see you with Mr. Glenister right after this. Welcome back to Love Your Weekend. Now, tonight is Oscars night, yet again. I'm pretty sure my invitation got misplaced, but it's next year. The red carpet's being swept. The awards are being buffed with a dry cloth. Well, anything Hollywood can do, Hampshire can do so much better. Becky Paskin and a Best of British inspired by the golden age of Hollywood, including, wait for it, a Marilyn Monroe martini from Some Like It Hot. Oh, that'll go down well. But first, he's the man who brought us the no-nonsense, Quattro-loving D.I. Gene Hunt in Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes. Philip Glenister certainly made his mark as the maverick copper, even though he has got a slight cough. Although for a PC, he wasn't always the most PC.
See that?
You had so much fun doing that. Did you do all your own stunts in that?
Do you know what? For the first series, I did quite a lot of the driving because we didn't know if the show was going to be successful. So when suddenly it sort of seemed to work, and I suddenly, by the second season, I was sort of getting into the car and they were like, "Oi, Phil, no, we've got your stunt double." And I'm like, well, I said he's sort of reversing out and, you know, a little fart. And he said, yeah, but... And then I suddenly realised, I'm a commodity now. Worth something now.
You were expendable before.
I was expendable before. So, yeah.
Working there with John Sim, it was a great double act, that. I mean, you obviously enjoyed each other's company.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we worked together a few times. We first worked together on a series called Clocking Off back in, 1999, 2000. That's the first time I met John. And then we did State of Play, and then Life on Mars and Mad Dogs after
Which
that.
led to Ashes to Ashes. I mean,
And then Ashes, yeah.
Life on Mars was 2006, so we're talking there about, what, 16 years ago. But stuff you were doing then, you wouldn't be able to do now.
I know.
Drama or comedy.
I know, isn't it amazing? It was very much a reflection of its time, you know. You had, certainly with Life on Mars, you can't sort of coat over the
you can't sanitise a previous era.
No,
to
exactly, exactly, to soften it up. And that was one of the whole points of the show, was to show the sort of the modern policeman working with the old-style policeman. And I do think that, I think when it was originally planned, I think they thought of Gene Hunt as being a much nastier sort of figure. But I always saw him as a figure of fun. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
I just saw him as the sort of the sheriff.
Well, that's very much how it came over, I thought.
Yeah, and I always treated the show as a Western. It's like a spaghetti Western, British spaghetti Western, and Gene Hunt was the sheriff. And as I said, my favourite line, whenever I'm asked, you know, what's your favourite quote or line, and it's always the one where it's in Gene Hunt's office and Sam Tyler walks in and there's a big poster of the good, the bad and the ugly. And Sam Tyler says to Gene, he said, "Which one are you?" And Gene Hunt says, "I'm all three." And I just think that kind of sums it all sort of up, really.
Well, your first television, I think, was in Minder, and it struck me always there's a lot of Minder in it, there's a lot of Sweeney in it. Is that kind of era, isn't it? That
absolutely. I mean, one of the best compliments I ever got was from John Thor's daughter, Abigail, who's a mate, and we had the same agent. And when the first season had been out, or the first few eps, she phoned me up and she said, "I just want you to know that I know my dad would have loved this show." Oh. And that was a really great compliment, and I've never forgotten that. It was very, very sweet of her to...
Great actor with a great legacy.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that was nice.
Well, you're in another 80s programme now, Revitalised, which is Bergerac.
Bergerac is back.
Bergerac is back. Before we find out who you are, whether or not you're John Nettles or not, here's a clip from the new Bergerac.
Gosh.
Let me introduce Detective Chief Inspector Jim Bergerac. I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Wakefield.
Thank you. Yes, it's terrific.
This opera gala night that you were at, Kate was planning to go with you, but she developed a headache. So, who knew about the change of plan?
No one. Maybe the staff.
Was it announced in any way? On your social media, maybe?
On my social media? I didn't think woman with headache merited a press release, actually.
I hear you're in dispute with the company that installed your security system.
Yeah, well, when they realised who I was, a lot of extra costs suddenly started to magically appear.
Right, but this was 2 weeks ago. Wasn't it? It's a long time to leave your home unprotected. Mr. Wakefield.
You know, I thought protecting the public was your job, Inspector. Gosh, how stupid am I?
Oh, so Damien Maloney there as the new Bergerac. Tell us about your character.
Right, so yes, old Artie, yes, Wakefield. He's basically a Jersey businessman, and he's successful. He also tries to be sort of philanthropic, but whether that's a sort of cover for something a bit darker. And there are sort of skeletons in the old cupboard, obviously. I don't want to give too much away, really, because
he's a wheeler dealer, then, basically.
Yeah, basically. He's got his hands in quite a few pies, and because it's it's obviously the relaunch of Bergerac, and it's what's nice about it is the first series is the story. So as in the old days, it was like 1 hour was its own story, but this story is over 6 episodes.
Right. Filmed on Jersey?
Some of it, yes. We did a few weeks in Jersey, and the rest we did in Devon. Because we don't have the infrastructure, we would have had to have taken everything over to Jersey. It's just, in this day and age, it's just too expensive in terms of television. So we shot in Devon and then did a few weeks in Jersey, which was great.
The variety of your work is tremendous and clearly very enjoyable. And I don't know a single actor who doesn't like variety, like a different challenge.
Yeah.
As a rare male in Calendar Girls, you must have had enormous fun.
Yeah, it was great. There was such an amazing group as well. And so when we actually shot the calendar sequence, they were so supportive of each other that they were all. We filmed that the set of the house was at Shepperton Studios, and Celia Imrie. Oh, Imrie was the ringleader, naturally. She was the one with the pink champagne to sort of, get the bubbles in, just to relax everybody. And I thought, can I have a glass? She was like, no, you're the photographer. You need steady hands, darling. But they were all great because they were all on set with each other for each sequence that we shot. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And they were all a bit nervous, but then a couple of glasses of the old pink fizz. And
Celia sorted them out.
And there was a great bit in it, actually, where I'm doing Celia's picture, and it's the we need considerably bigger buns moment and everything. And Nigel, our director, said, Celia's a bit nervous, so just feel free to ad-lib or something like that. So I don't know where it came from, it just came out and I just looked at her and I said, I can't remember her character's name now, I said, you look beautiful. And there was this, and the camera was on Celia, and there's this great little moment where she just reacts, and that was kind of just ad-libbed. Oh. And it's a really lovely, and it's one of my favourite moments in the film because I know it wasn't scripted.
Would you like to see it?
Well, go on.
Here it is.
You got it.
Left side up a little, your right side down a little, and the middle section sort of...
Oh, God's sake, get bloody Botticelli in here. Lawrence. Get in here.
Chin down to your left. You look beautiful, Celia. OK, we're away.
I was thinking you were slightly upstaged by the ice buns, weren't you, there?
Completely. Absolutely. No pink fizz, but a bit of ice bun.
A bit of ice buns, that's all you got for your trouble. The things that you've been in, you've been one of those faces which right from the early days has popped up. I mentioned Minder. You also had what I hope was a delight in being in the very last Poirot with David Suchet, the final curtain one.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, that came about because David and I shared the same agent, who's no longer with us, our dear Gilly Sanguinetti, who passed a few years ago. And I'd done this production called Hidden in Northern Ireland, and David very kindly agreed to just come in and do, not a huge part, but just sort of guest in it. And they were thinking of setting up the last 3 Poirots, which they hadn't done, and we were just chatting in between takes, and he said, you've never done a Poirot, have you? And I said, no, I don't think so. No, I haven't. He said, well, we're trying to get the last 3 in motion. Will you come in and be in one? So I said, yeah, sure, if you want me. And then it sort of happened, and it just turned out that it was the last ever episode, yeah.
But he transformed himself into that part, didn't he? His physiognomy was different.
He basically, it was true, there was the things that, I think once he got the moustache on, he became Poirot. So if you're in the makeup trailer, and you're in the middle of a conversation, and he'd be David Suchet, and as soon as it was a bit of a silence, and then suddenly the moustache would go, and he'd be like, Ennemi Philippe, and he'd be like, oh, it's Poirot. And he'd stay in the character on set, but it wasn't at all pretentious. It was just his way of working, and it just became kind of the norm. He didn't think twice about it. And I mean, I did it when I worked in America. I worked on a series called Outcast, and I was playing a Southern preacher. So I spent the whole time just staying in the accent.
It's interesting that because you're a great voiceover artist too. I mean, we hear you a lot, and seeing at the end of it, is
that bloke.
Oh, it's Philip Glaisdale. knew I knew the voice, So the voice, as opposed to the whole thing, is, I know somebody does radio. I love the intimacy of voice work because it's much more subtle in certain ways.
It is. Somebody told me many years ago, they said, just imagine you're talking to one person.
Yeah.
Just imagine you're talking to your friend. Do you know what I mean? Excellent. And I think that's the sort of thing with radio, generally speaking. And I've sort of passed that on to sort of various people.
There's an intimacy to it, and I think
absolutely,
you're right. Absolutely,
yeah. And it's fun also because, and also you don't have to worry about learning lines. You don't have to put a costume on or makeup. You just turn up, get a coffee, nice warm studio.
Do I gather that learning lines is a bit of a...
Alan, as you get older, it doesn't become any easier. It's quite the opposite. I think you'll find most actors of a certain age, it's the one thing, because it's your memory. And as we know, as one gets older, one's memory does begin to decline in some respects. This is why you see, back in the day, you see so many actors used to do crosswords. And I always wondered, was that just stave the boredom? But I think actually there was a thing about people wanting to keep their brain ticking over as well, you know. But it's certainly, I mean, you have this thing now where actors are required to go and do a self-tapes, where you have to literally, you get sent some bits of paper, a script, and you have to learn it.
Is this for an audition?
For an audition.
Yeah.
And you have to learn it, and then invariably what happens is that the actors get sent it with 2 days' notice. Now, it's fine if you're 20 years old and your brain's fresh and you can learn it, but when you're of a certain age, we take a bit longer. And so I think it's something that the industry really need to look at, and because it's not something that actors enjoy doing. It's kind of emotionless, and you know, sometimes it's just I just feel it's an insult to the acting profession and the talent. There, I've said it.
Yes, and directors watching, please take note. It's only fair.
Well, it's casting directors, really. Directors, I think, but casting directors, get people back in the room. You've got to get people back in the room and meet.
Is this something that your brother feels as long as Robert Glennis to your brother? I mean, do you get confused with one another every now and again?
Occasionally, yes. I think I get it more than people come up and say, I've had a few people come up and say, really, I love you in Hustle. And I said, no, I'm not in Hustle, that's my brother. And they go, no, it's you. And I said, no, it's not me, it's my brother. And I remember saying this to Roberts, and I said, people ever come up to you and sort of, you know, think you're me and sort of say, I really like you in Life on Mars? He did this long pause, and he looked at me and he went, no. Oh, charming. Charming.
There you are.
Yeah.
Brotherly, sibling rivalry.
Sibling
Thank you, Philip.
rivalry.
Bless you. You'll be staying for the selection of cinematic cocktails in honour of the Oscars, will you?
Go on then. Try.
Well, before we're transported to Hollywood, let me transport you somewhere close to home. It's time, and I know you like to guess, so I'm not telling you, for today's Ode to Joy. Did you guess? Did you get it right? That was the glorious Black Isle in Scotland, courtesy of Stuart Wilson, set to the Eine kleine Nachtmusik by Mozart. Coming up, It's Oscars night, in case you've slipped it or been living in a cave or something. Not to be outdone, we have our own celebrations. Becky Paskin's bringing a touch of old Hollywood to today's Best of British, and she's a great supporting cast too. I'll be back with Becky, Philip, Jenny and Renee. What a cast! Right after this. Welcome back to Love Your Weekend. Tonight, Hollywood's biggest stars will come together for the 97th Academy Awards. But who needs the Oscars when you can have a perfectly good cocktail party at home? That sounded right, didn't it? Or even on a train. Take it away, Marilyn.
Oh, I tell you, my dear, this is the only way to travel.
You better put on the lights. I can't see what I'm doing.
No lights. We don't want them to know we're having a party.
But I may spill some.
So spill it. Spills, thrills, laughs, and games. This may even turn out to be a surprise party.
What's a surprise?
Uh-oh. Not yet.
When?
Better have a drink first.
A chaotic cocktail party, but one that we'd all love to have been invited to. Did you know that Marion herself never won an Oscar? Still, she did win hearts aplenty, including that of Jack Lemmon, I think. Here to help us channel that golden era of Hollywood glamour, our very own screen siren, Becky Paskin.
There's so many cocktail moments in movies, particularly back in the silver screen days, so I thought I'd bring you a selection of my favourite moments, including that one of Marilyn on the train as well. So when we get to it, we'll kick off with one of my favourite films of all time, and that is Breakfast at Tiffany's. 1961. We're starting with this one over here. So I have made for you a breakfast royale, which is a champagne cocktail, but made with English sparkling wine. And this is from Leckford. This is a Waitrose own sparkling wine. Absolutely stunning, made in the traditional method as well. And I've just paired it with some croissant syrup and some cassis as well. So,
some what?
Yes.
Syrup? What, as in croissants?
I made a syrup out of croissants, yeah.
Pastry and butter.
Pastry, butter, berry
really
as well. So there's that kind of
I can taste the croissant in
flavour
there.
come through.
Oh, yeah.
A bit.
That's really
breakfast.
good.
A bit.
It's breakfast.
It's very nice.
It's
really
breakfast in a glass.
It is. Oh, gosh,
That
that's
is
good.
so good. It's so light.
In a glass with a
Yes.
kick.
With a kick. If I was to meet Audrey, I would take her to Tiffany's and we would have a glass of this together, looking in the windows.
Cheers.
Oh, very good. Good morning.
Verdict,
Yes.
guys. Rennie?
This is really good. It's light. I love it. I love a champagne cocktail. This is great.
Jenny?
I think it's terrific, and it does have that breakfast taste.
It's really delicious.
It is. It is delicious. It's going down very quickly. I'm going to put it down.
I can try it.
Exactly.
So our next drink is the Marilyn Monroe Manhattan, and this is inspired obviously by Some Like It Hot and the drink that they enjoyed on their train to Florida to play in their all-female jazz band. So 1959, this is obviously a film set in the 1920s, the height of Prohibition. So the fact that they managed to have a bottle of whiskey and then a bottle of vermouth on the train, they mixed them up in hot water bottles.
I think you only need to sniff this.
That's strong.
I love the glasses as well, the
It's
classic.
a strong drink.
I love these glasses.
Renee, you will no longer need eyelash curlers. Just sniff this.
Now, if you
Wow.
are a film buff, you'll know that Tony Curtis's character, he plays the saxophone. And so I've chosen to use a Scottish whiskey called the Glendronach for this Manhattan. It's very sherried, so lots of lovely rich dried fruit flavours to it. But the reason I chose Glendronach is because its stills are shaped like saxophones. They're known as the saxophone stills. So this whiskey is chosen in honour of Tony Curtis playing his saxophone in Some
What
Like
do
It
we
Hot.
think? That's incredibly...
Well, and the sweetness comes what from the vermouth.
From the vermouth, there's a slight sweetness from the Scotch whisky as well. I have actually cheekily added a dash of cherry brandy in here as well. Because I think that just rounds out those fruity flavours and just adds a little bit of a kick, so you can detract a bit from the vermouth and add just a touch of cherry brandy.
You don't need much of a sip, do you?
I was going to say,
It's
I couldn't do
very
too many
strong.
of these, I don't think. I'd be on the
Jenny?
floor.
I think it's delicious. I couldn't drink too much of this without and still stay standing.
Yeah.
It has way more flavours than I thought it would. Smelling it, I was like, oh gosh, it's going to blow my head off. But actually, sipping it, I'm like...
We're moving into a drink that's called the French 75. Now, normally a French 75 is served in a champagne glass, but this is in a Collins glass, and it's for a reason. The French 75 as a drink is named after the famous artillery gun that was used by the French in the First and Second World Wars. Can you guess the film that this might be from?
Who was in it? Give us a clue.
If I were to say to you, here's looking at you, kid.
Casablanca.
Casablanca. Of course.
There we go. In Casablanca, the French 75 is ordered as a sign of the French resistance. It's ordered by Rick, who is played by Humphrey Bogart, his ex-girlfriend. She's French and she's dating a German soldier. She orders a French 75 for everyone in the bar. There's a lot of German soldiers in this bar. She orders it as a sign of resistance. So this is a spice gin from Scotland, and the reason why I've used the spice gin is to reference all those lovely spices that you would have found in Morocco around the time. So Darnley's is a beautiful warming spice gin, and it's just paired with lemon juice, a touch of sugar syrup, and topped off with sparkling wine.
Right, okay.
That's very nice, very refreshing.
Yeah.
Spices from Morocco, very clever.
Is that much easier for you to drink?
Yeah, much easier.
Very smooth. Yeah, that could sit down and make one drunk quite easily.
Yeah.
Very much so.
It's a good picnic drink, that one.
Well, we'll move on to another one now, and this is a non-alcoholic drink that was made for a movie star. She was the youngest ever actress to win an Oscar at the age of 6 years old. An honorary Academy Award. Good Ship Lollipop. So this is a Shirley Temple. Now, as the story goes, Shirley Temple was out dining with her parents in a Beverly Hills restaurant, and she was jealous that they were having old fashions. She really wanted one too, so the bartender created her own cocktail, which was a mixture of soda and grenadine. Today we have this amazing Shirley Temple drink, which is a more grown-up version. There's lots of blends of grenadine, different sodas in here, lots of different flavours, pomegranates. So it's made by Black Lines, and it's absolutely stunning, really refreshing.
So
and
it's
lovely.
So that's already mixed then?
It's already mixed, it's ready to go.
It is really nice,
Ready to
because
go.
it's not too sweet and sickly. It's got a bit of edge to it, hasn't it?
Oh, that's nice.
It is nice, I like that.
Yeah.
It's got a touch of ginger ale.
The ginger is
Yes,
in there, that's
yeah.
lovely.
The original Shirley Temple was either made with Sprite or ginger ale, or both.
Right, yeah.
There's no real...
Yeah.
There's no evidence for
recipe.
any of it. No one really knows. But it was one of those.
That's really nice. I like
Rennie,
that.
you're just quietly sipping. Are you?
No, it's really good. I was just thinking this would be great as also to be used as a mixer for vodka or gin. I'm like, I could definitely
Stick a bit of
stick a
champagne
little
in
something
there as
in
well.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really good.
I've been irresistibly drawn to the last one because it's in my kind of shape of glass.
Okay, well, this one might be a bit strong.
It's had two
Just
eyeballs in
ignore
it, though, hasn't it?
So this is a Gibson. Now, the Gibson is a style of martini. It's made with gin, with vermouth as well, and a touch of pickled onion juice. Just be warned.
I've never had one of these in my life before. It sounds very serious.
But the Gibson, Alan, I'm going to tell you, was very popular back in the 1950s silver screen days. Everyone was drinking these. It's in so many films. All About Eve with Bette Davis.
Yes.
But also North by Northwest.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, the Alfred Hitchcock thriller with Cary Grant.
Carrie
Exactly.
running through the maze field.
That's right, yeah.
So for this one, we've used a Grasmere gin, and this is from the northwest of England. You'll see where I've gone there.
Northwest of England.
Yes, very much so. And this is a really lovely distillery. They're 100% carbon neutral. They produce this beautiful, clean, fresh, juniper-y, citrus-forward gin. It's stunning, and paired with the pickle juice, I love it.
Rennie,
I've never had a martini before, and so this is I'm scared to sip it. It smells super strong.
You can't compare it.
No comparison, but let's see.
It is completely different to a normal
And
martini.
are you going to have the pickled onion from it? One of the eyeballs, as you said.
Gosh,
I might have one of them.
that is so strong.
Jenny, is this your kind of drink, or...?
It's actually not, but it tastes good, but it's
I have to
not
say,
really
Becky,
my kind
I
of drink.
prefer a normal martini.
Normal martini.
Yeah, I like pickled onions on their own. I like a martini on its own. The onion juice doesn't do it for me, but it's purely personal.
I might actually go out and buy some pickled onions and then just pickle them in this. I think that could be quite good.
Yeah, I wouldn't object to that.
This is really, really strong.
I've got time to try, Rennie. Give it a
It's
go.
an acquired taste, a martini, because it literally is just gin with vermouth, and then you stir it down with ice or shake it, however you prefer it, and that's it. That's all it is. But it's very similar to Manhattan in terms of its alcohol strength. So
And if
very
you like
straight up
gin
cocktail.
and you're not keen on putting too much vermouth in, just put the gin in and then hold it in the direction of Italy. And that's probably enough. That's it for today. Thanks to all my guests, Philip, Jenny, Renee and Becky. Joining me next week, adventurer and explorer Ben Fogle, comedy power couple Paul Merton and Suki Webster, and a couple of Short-horn cows. No Sunday morning's complete without them, really, is it? You can, of course, catch all the red carpet and Oscars coverage tonight from 10:30 on ITV1 and ITVX. But until then, as Marilyn Monroe famously said, we're all of us stars, and we deserve to twinkle. That was Marilyn Monroe. I'll definitely be twinkling if I have any more of this from all of us here. Cheers!
Cheers!
Cheers! Cheers.
Happy Oscars.
Happy Oscars.
Yeah.
I hope you win, Philip. Right.
Cheers.